Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Iceberg video. This is a very popular series on my channel that we go through the darkest stories in the world of football, and if you're new, please do smash a subscribe button. At the time of recording, 80% of you guys who have recently watched one of my videos are not subscribed, so if you can do me a big favor and hit that sub button, it would mean the world. And if we can as well, let's try to hit 4,000 likes, because I think that is something that we are able to do. Also, thank you for the love on my print company, mazzoladesigns.co.uk. For this video, I will make a 15% off code for the next week, so use code Iceberg for 15% off all items. The link is down below at the top of the description, and let's get straight into the video. So, for those that may not be too aware of our Iceberg videos, just to really fly through it quickly, the Iceberg trend on YouTube, I'm sure that you've seen 100 times. Very simply put, we start from the top of the iceberg and move our way down, where it goes deeper and darker. So the further we go on, the worse it gets, as a general rule of thumb. So, let us begin. The tip of the iceberg. Chelsea v Barca 2009. Of course, you knew it was coming. Labelled as the shameful match, or as what Didier Drogba calls it, a effing disgrace. On May the 6th, 2009, a infamous match took place. It was the UEFA Champions League semi-final. It was the second leg, and after a 0-0 draw at the Nou Camp, Chelsea knew that the away goal rule would be very, very important. Simply put, if Barcelona scores one goal and they still draw the game, then Barcelona goes through to the Champions League final, ready to face Manchester United. Chelsea started in fantastic fashion, with Michael Essien scoring a goal in the 9th minute of the game, making it 1-0 on aggregate. However, on this infamous night, no one would remember the game for Essien's goal. Christ, no one really remembers it for Iniesta's goal. They remember it for the referee. Chelsea saw 4 separate penalty appeals waved away by the referee called Tom Henning of Rebo. Throughout this night, Rebo had ruled that Dani Alves' foul on Florent Malouda had taken place outside the box rather than inside, and the Norwegian official had not seen Erik Abidal's subsequent tug on Didier Drogba. He had also failed to spot 2 handballs, the first by Gerard Piqué and the second by Samuel Eto'o. Gus Hiddink, Chelsea's manager, spoke in an interview saying the following: "If you have seen 3 or 4 situations waved away, then the referee's performance was the worst I have seen. The overall feeling is one of being robbed and one of injustice." And of course, throughout this night, you see the famous clip of Didier Drogba. It is a disgrace. It's a effing disgrace. A night that should have been remembered for an incredible 93rd minute win to send a team to the Champions League final will forever be remembered for a controversial refereeing performance. Tell me down below, do you think Chelsea were robbed, or if the referee was hard done by? Luis Karius. Yeah, we kinda have to talk about this. The situation on its own probably shouldn't warrant being on this. However, it's kind of what's happened after the fact that makes it, for me, worthwhile putting into this iceberg. Granted, it is at the top of the iceberg. However, the story of Luis Karius is one that is of real unfortunate events. We all know what happened. The 2018 Champions League final, Liverpool v Real Madrid. The first Champions League final for Liverpool since 2007. Now, it has been a while, so maybe you may look back thinking, was it as bad as people like to think? Well, incredible, just wow. This performance was so bad that he never played for Liverpool ever again, and had not played for an English team since the Carabao Cup final for Newcastle just this year. Half-time arose, and it was quite a tense first half between Liverpool and Real Madrid, and it was largely overshadowed by the injury by Mohamed Salah by Sergio Ramos. But it was early in the second half that Luis Karius made a mistake which many could have only dreamt in their nightmares. In the 50th minute, Karius gathers a long ball from Toni Kroos and aims to roll it out quickly. While rolling it out, Benzema sticks out a leg and diverts the ball into the goal. Benzema was only a yard away from Karius while he made this decision, which turned out to be a fateful error. Liverpool were now 1-0 down in the UCL final for a goal that should have never gone in. But fortunately for Luis Karius, Liverpool brought it back 1-1 only 5 minutes later due to a corner from Liverpool and put in back a net by Sadio Mane. Relief for Karius. Surely we won't let this slip. He let it slip. Of course, the famous bicycle kick by Gareth Bale to make it 2-1 in the 63rd minute. No keeper in the world would save that. It is just very unfortunate it happened to him this night. And then it got worse. Later on in the end of the game, Luis Karius did the thing. Does it matter if Karius throws the ball in the back of his own net? Probably, considering there was still a lot to play, as there was still 7 minutes left and they were only 2-1 down. Well, he just kind of threw it in back of his own net. From my memory, I thought it was a dipping, swerving shot which was impossible to calculate. But in reality, it kind of was a straight at him and he just kind of flapped at it. 3-1 Real Madrid, and Liverpool lost the Champions League final. And Karius was seen as a man to blame for this game. Now, is that fair? Probably not. Since this event, Liverpool loaned him out during his 2 seasons at Besiktas, went to Union Berlin and only played 4 games across the entire season, and then has only played once for Newcastle, 1 game that dictated a player's life, and it is not fair to say that he has really ever truly recovered from it. Robin van Persie versus Barcelona. Another Barcelona one, and it won't be the last one. There is just something about Barcelona with referees in UEFA competitions. I am not drawing to any conclusions. On March the 8th, 2011, Barcelona played Arsenal in a round of 16 second leg. Arsenal beat Barcelona in the first leg with a famous 2-1 victory. Leo Messi put Barcelona 1-0 up at a stroke of half time, and Arsenal went on to score a goal. Well, technically it was Busquets, but they went on to score anyway. It was 1-1 and Arsenal got their away goal that they needed so desperately. However, only minutes later came a turning point in this entire tie. Van Persie found himself through on goal with only Victor Valdez to beat. However, the referee blew the whistle just before he hit the ball. Van Persie went on to take a shot and missed the goal. However, the referee, Massimo Busacca, probably butchered that name, I'm very sorry, gave Robin van Persie a second yellow card, followed by a red. Van Persie was penalised for shooting after he blew the whistle, only about a second or two afterwards. Despite pleading to the referee that he didn't even hear the whistle due to the 95,000 spectator crowd, the decision remained and Barcelona went on to win the game 3-1 thanks to Leo Messi and Xavi Hernandez, beating Arsenal 4-3 on aggregate. Van Persie, in his post-match interview, went on to state it as a total joke. Quoted, "It was a total joke, the sending off. How can I hear his whistle with 95,000 people jumping up? How can I hear that? For God's sake, please explain that to me." However, when Pep Guardiola got asked about his thoughts on the incident, he said, "Wenger told me to congratulate the referee." Yeah, that sounds like Pep. Tell me down below in comments, were Arsenal robbed? The abandoned derby. In the 2004-09 quarter-finals, AC Milan came up against their fierce rivals Inter Milan. After AC Milan won in the first leg 2-0, all eyes was on the second leg. And after a Shevchenko goal in the 30th minute, AC Milan looked like they were home and clear to win the tie. But it got a bit wild as the match descended into chaos in the second half, with Inter fans repeatedly throwing flares onto the pitch. As the flares and fireworks continued to land on the San Siro pitch, referee Marcus Merck twice suspended play and called for a stadium announcement to ask them to stop. However, as smoke filled the stadium, AC Milan's goalkeeper Dida was hit by a flare thrown from the crowd, and the referee Merck immediately abandoned the game. The UEFA officials backed the referee's decision. AC Milan were handed a 3-0 walkover by UEFA. Inter were later given a £132,000 fine for the incident and ordered to play their following 4 European matches behind closed doors. One of the very rare times in the entirety of European Cup history that a match had to be abandoned. Istanbul 2005. I simply have to do this because I feel like it'd be, if I just simply didn't speak about it, We all know what happened, and I still don't know how it really happened. I'm not even a Liverpool fan, but even I get a bit excited when I think about Istanbul. Maybe because I was like 7, 8 at the time, and when I look back on it, I remember watching Istanbul on my TV, watching the Champions League final. It's just kind of what you do, even if you're not even involved with the game, of course. And I just remember, even at the age of 7, understanding the gravity of what has just happened in front of me. And this is not just any AC Milan. This is the stacked AC Milan. We're talking Cafu, Stam, Nesta, Maldini, Pirlo, Gattuso, Seedorf, Kaká, Shevchenko, Crespo, and of course Dida in one starting 11. The best of the best. Players that we look back on now as legends, cult heroes. And you look at Liverpool's team and you see some decent players, but Steve Finnan, Dimi Traore, they're not bad players, but come on now. From 3-0 down at half-time and almost being embarrassed to then come back from 3-0 down. I mean, they conceded in the first minute. In the first minute, to come back in the way that they did, Dudek with his antics was something that you'll never see ever again. I have no idea how this happened, but I'm very glad that it did. Nicklas Bendtner, Euro 2012. This incident was really what sparked this video in the first place, and it has to be the first thing we go through. Lord Nicklas Bendtner, of course, the Danish striker. In the group stage, Denmark played against Portugal, and Nicklas Bendtner went on to score a goal, a really big goal for Denmark, and was a great moment. However, his celebration was a rarer one, to say the least, as Nicklas Bendtner was fined €100,000 and also received a one-match ban after pulling down his pants to show his underwear, advertising the bookmaker Paddy Power. He was never aware the fact that it was seen as unauthorised sponsorship and is a finable offence. As quoted by Bendtner, I didn't think people would care, and I didn't think the fine would be higher than ones given for some players for racism, which, in fairness, is a solid point, which completely opened up a can of worms, as later on that same day of the tournament, Croatia was fined €80,000 for the fans racially abusing Mario Balotelli. We will go into that later on in the video. So to clarify, showing underwear with Paddy Power is a more serious and finable offence than racism. England v Iceland 2016. Yeah. I do remember where I was when this happened. I was just downstairs in my living room watching it with 2 friends and my dad. And if you do actually want to go and look at my reaction to this game, it wasn't live, but it was directly afterwards, then my reaction is still on YouTube now and is on the screen as I'm currently talking. Yeah, England v Iceland. Potentially the biggest upset in major international history. And I don't think I'm being too far by saying that. England, one of the greatest historic founders of the game, with one of the greatest leagues, was beaten by a nation with a population roughly sized to the borough of Croydon, which is a small little area in London. Iceland prior had no history of tournament football, was brave, played with courage and togetherness, which was abundantly clear to be much more than what England showed. Prior to this tournament, Iceland was 133rd in the world. Roy Hodgson, that was manager, said after the game, "I don't really know what I am doing here." The Panenka. Little do you know, the original Panenka was originated from the European Championships. The technique of dinking a ball, particularly for a penalty, into the back of the net in a cheeky manner, originated from Czech player Antonín Panenka, who was a Czech player at the time that didn't only score a penalty at the UEFA Euro 1976 final, but was the decisive penalty to win the tournament for Czechoslovakia at the time. Czechoslovakia beat West Germany in the final on penalties. The manner of how they did it will forever go down in folklore, and therefore the Panenka penalty was born. One of the greatest in recent years was Zinedine Zidane in the 2006 FIFA World Cup final, and even this almost failed. Ronaldo Euro 2016. It wouldn't be a Euros video without talking about Ronaldo, and especially that Euro 2016 campaign, where people do forget when speaking about Ronaldo about the fact that he's won a European Championship, typically don't mention the fact that he was injured very early on in the game. However, this showed a side of Ronaldo that made many believe that it is only a matter of time that he will enter into the world of being a manager. Later in the second half and into extra time, you saw Ronaldo to garner and encourage his teammates to fight for Portugal, and many times pushing the Portuguese manager out the way and to even get him up for getting the team onto the task. With 3 goals and 3 assists, Ronaldo made history for his nation. The surface. Turkey v Croatia 2008. Potentially the most remarkable ending of maybe any game in European Championship history. Croatia played Turkey in the Euro 2008 quarterfinals with a quite intense game for the vast majority, with a lot of what was deemed as the golden generation before the golden generation for Croatia. Little did they know what they were going to achieve in multiple years. However, the game was tense for the vast majority, Croatia being the better side for a good chunk of it, and they almost got what they felt like they deserved. In the 119th minute, Klasnic scored what was deemed to be the winner. Incredible scenes, and Turkey, who was behind for a good chunk of the game, felt like they were finally beaten. And suddenly, one of the most incredible moments happened, where in the 122nd minute, immediately a long ball went up for Turkey, and Turkey went on to score immediately afterwards. The Turkish number 9 sent Turkey wild and caused a lot of controversy, with all the Croatia players, officials, journalists, media. The entire lot was demanding answers from the 4th official and the referee, demanding that the game should have been blown for full time way before Turkey's equaliser. Of course, Turkey went on to win that penalty shootout, and a famous semi-final for Turkey awaits at Euro 2008. England v Spain 1996. Euro 1996, held in England. Football was truly coming home. It finally had to be time for England to show up and to win silverware back on home turf. It's coming home was blasted in the speakers of every radio in the nation. However, one game came out to be one of the most controversial, and it happened between England and Spain in the quarterfinals. At Wembley, the game ended 0-0. However, this 0-0 was vastly different to many others, where Spain had the ball in the back of the net 2 times and saw at least 3 separate strong penalty claims waved away by the referee at the time. 5 different occasions appeared to go against their favour, with replays showing Julio Salisnas had timed his run perfectly in the first half, where his goal was deemed offside. Spain went on to lose that quarter-final 4-2 on penalties, where Julio Salisnas quoted, "We not only played against 11 players and 70,000 fans, but also 3 officials." Quoted, "The match was impossible to win." Bierhoff golden goal. Now, before we get into this, I need to explain the golden goal rule, because for many of you guys who are younger, you may not actually know too much about it because it doesn't exist anymore. Golden goal was a simple rule. Once you enter extra time, if you score the first goal, you win the game. Other known as sudden death, in 1996, in this competition, this was the first time this was ever utilised, and it led to a lot of confusion, where in the final between Germany and Czech Republic, the golden goal rule was utilised, where Oliver Bierhoff scored the winner in the 95th minute in extra time. The main thing is this was the first time it was ever used. So when Bierhoff scored that goal, a mass amount of confusion was surrounding the stadium and for many fans back home, as many may have forgot or be even confused on what the rule even was. And best believe the golden goal rule was not only used once to settle a European final, because David Trezeguet 2000. In the 2000 Euro Championship final, France played Italy. Held in Netherlands, France went on to extra time. France, who obviously was the FIFA World Cup holders at the time, was looking at becoming one of the first nations to hold the World Cup and the European Championships simultaneously. David Trezeguet was subbed on in the 76th minute and went on to score in the 103rd minute in golden goal extra time, making it not only once but twice a major European final was settled by the golden goal rule. This caused multiple amounts of controversy, with many deeming it being an unfair and very harsh way to decide the winner of a major international tournament. Wales, Euro 2016. Pretty much here, mainly because if I don't put it in here, then I'm gonna get a lot of Welsh people shouting at me. So here you go, boys. This is your moment. Wales, after not entering a major international tournament for countless decades. In 2016, this was the first time in their history they ever qualified for the European Championship, and they did not go on to only make it out the group stage, but the round of 16 and also the quarterfinals, with the famous Cruyff turn by how Robson Cornu would solidify himself in Welsh football history. Unfortunately for them, it was not meant to be, where they lost 2-0 to Portugal in the semi-finals. Nonetheless, they would go home proud and they would go home as heroes to the entire nation. Jabulani. The Jabulani is a football, if you don't know. Back in the 2010 World Cup, there was this ball right here, which was called the Jabulani, which had a lot of criticism by a lot of the players and staff of each nation. Some more than others, some loved it, some hated it. Mostly hated it. I don't know how to explain it, but simply put, there was something weird about this ball that made it erratic and unpredictable. And I believe the reason is that it was too round. I don't know how that's possible for football, but here we are, lads. Apparently the ball was designed so well to be so round and curved by Adidas that it was too round that when the ball was hit, how it reacted to the air, it became erratic and it moved and it swayed a lot. Therefore, if you're a goalkeeper, good luck. That's pretty much the point here. Many goalkeepers coming out and complaining, many players coming out and complaining, many managers and staff members coming out and complaining, and it created many incredible goals for the World Cup and a lot of tears. But oh no, the Jabulani will always go down in football history of being one of the most iconic and most recognized footballs there is out there because of a ball being too round. I still don't know how that even makes any sense. Of a ball that's too round, but there you go, boys. Jabulani always have a place in my heart for being just a great laugh. Luis Suarez handball. Never say Luis Suarez to a Ghanaian. Just simply put, don't do it. You may actually get stabbed. I don't want to say that Ghanaians stab people, but when it comes to Luis Suarez, they may have an exception. We're staying in the 2010 World Cup and in the quarterfinal in South Africa. This is held in Africa. Ghana being potentially an African nation in a World Cup semi-final. This hits hard because what happened is that in the extra time, there was a chance and Luis Suarez on the line hit the ball with his hands. Blatant handball. Gets given a red card, he's sent off, and it goes to a Ghana penalty, okay? Asamoah Gyan steps up. The entire country is watching. The entire continent is watching him to send an African nation to a semi-final of an African World Cup, and he missed it. And he missed it. And Luis Suarez, what really hurt was the celebrations because, of course, Uruguay went on from that miss to go win on penalties, and Luis Suarez was held as a hero. In simple terms, cheating. He purposely cheated and took the risk of going down to 10 men, and somehow it worked out for him. So it's genius, but don't say that to a Ghanaian, otherwise he may actually kill you. To this day, Luis Suarez is not a word that is spoken about in that country. 7-1. Brazilians, come on. Let's be real. You knew that this was coming. Don't act surprised. Imagine hosting a World Cup, and in all countries, you are Brazil, one of the most passionate footballing nations in the world. You host a World Cup. You're in a World Cup semi-final against Germany, and you lose 7-1 in front of your entire nation. I remember where I was when I watched this. I remember being in my living room, and I remember just having... what was I drinking? I had a dark fruits. I had a Strongbow dark fruits watching this game, and I remembered the taste of the dark fruits. That's how recognizable. I remember going to the group chat, and literally no one could actually understand what they were witnessing here. 7-1 in a World Cup. They were 5-0 at half time, I think. This loss was so bad that it became a day of mourning, a week of mourning. In Brazilian football history, the images and the videos that we saw from that night will be remembered in Brazilian history. To end it on a high note, they did face against each other in the Olympics. Brazil beat Germany, and Brazil did come out on top with Neymar also winning that. So it did give some sort of justice and respect back to the nation since. So at least there's that. But forever, this game will always be remembered, at least in recent footballing history, and one of the most recognizable games in the World Cup there's ever been. Pele. I must have Pele in here, just because it's Pele. No other reason. There you go. World Cup songs. This must be in here. You may be kind of confused, but for me, I realized that World Cup songs is possibly even bigger than the World Cup itself at times. And that may make no sense, but just type up on YouTube right now, just type up World Cup. And the first thing that dropped down in your search bar is World Cup song or World Cup songs. It's the first thing that pops up, not World Cup, you know, final, World Cup highlights, World Cup certain years, 2018, 2014. No, it's World Cup song. The likes of Waka Waka, Shakira, Waving Flag will forever be beyond football. Every single fan of football in the world knows these songs, and it is iconic to the game. Most conversations about the World Cup online, it always ends up to, yo, so Waka Waka or Waving Flag? Waka Waka, wave. It's Waving Flag. It's absolutely Waving Flag. I forgot to mention, but that was the peak of it, or the above surface level. Now let's get into the surface level of the iceberg here, the tier beneath. The level we go down, things may get a bit more weirder, a bit more less known, or a bit more serious. Kind of depends on how I kind of rank it here. And let's start off with a big one on the surface level, right? Slavery in Qatar. The Qatar World Cup has had many publications over it, and this is why it's so high. This should be lower down, but because so many people knows about it, is what makes it even more weirder. Everyone knows that how the stadiums have been built in the last couple of years is very inhumane. There's been multiple countless deaths that's been related to members that has built the stadiums over in Qatar. People coming from other countries, from surrounding nations, looking for work, looking for any way to provide for their family. People are very desperate to provide for their family, and many stories, just look it up online, there's hundreds of stories of people coming from Bangladesh, coming from surrounding nations. They go there to help and provide for their family, and then they are never heard of ever again. It could be a combination of inhumane work hours, working from rise till dawn every day, poor living conditions, poor nutrition, the beyond excruciating heat. All these factors come together, what has created this World Cup, but it feels like it is tainted a bit. Maybe not now, maybe later on down the line, people will look back on it and think, yeah, this was a great World Cup or a bad World Cup or whatever else, but then it will all come down to how was it formed. And there's a lot of dodgy things behind it. And this leads to my next point. FIFA Gate. The amount of FIFA officials which has been arrested, founded for bribes, fraud, so many arrests and crimes has been caused by FIFA officials. It is actually getting beyond a joke at this stage. Of course, there's the example of the likes of Qatar being maybe a bribe to get into the World Cup. There's no actual proof of that, but there's proof of other World Cups being given with some kind of weird little leniencies. We all know that FIFA is a corrupt organization, and that is what makes it even worse. The fact that we already know, but there's nothing that we can do to change it. And I could go into every single arrest here, but I could be for 15-20 minutes. This should be low down on the list, but because it's so well known is what makes it almost worse. Everyone knows about it. it's just Vuvuzelas. Now, yes, this may seem like a really weird point to come after what we just said. However, I could put this on a very, very serious level here, because this is the worst thing that has ever been created known to man. I fucking hate Vuvuzelas. It ruins the World Cup. I can't go back to that World Cup and watch any highlights, watch any commentary, watch anything about it without just hearing nah, nah, nah. You get what I mean? What's happening here? Whose idea was it to get this little fucking horn thing, and to literally who sold that? I need to know 500 blokes outside every single stadium with these fucking horns. Who got that going? Who thought, yeah, that sounds pretty good? Absolutely ruins it. Just Vuvuzelas, like, I hate it. I never want to hear that sound ever again. 2006, Zinedine Zidane headbutt. I remembered where I was when this happened. I was in my kitchen. My dad brought me downstairs. I was upstairs playing Halo. I was playing Halo, bro, during the 06 final. And then my dad said, it's, you know, near the end of the game, come downstairs. And I don't know why I wasn't watching it. I don't know. I was just too busy playing Halo, bro. I'm sorry. Gamer boy I am. And I remember watching it on like my little box TV in my kitchen. I remember this, I just saw him headbutt him, and because I was like 7, so I didn't really know what I even saw there. But I remember my dad, to this day, my dad just went, oh Christ. I don't know why. Zinedine Zidane, one of the most beautiful footballers, creativity, flair, elegance, grace, just absolutely everything about Zidane, and it goes out by headbutting a geezer on the pitch in a World Cup final. How can you have one of the best penalties, a chip, okay, a Panenka chip in a World Cup final? The balls! I can't tell if I should respect you or not, because that is disgusting, lad. This is from the word of Materazzi of why Zidane headbutted him. Now, this is, of course, from his words, so maybe lying, but this is what he said, allegedly. After the third clash, I frowned and he retorted, I'll give you my shirt later. I replied that I would rather have his sister than his shirt, in which led to Zinedine Zidane going backwards and headbutting him to his chest. To his chest. I've never known a man think, I'm gonna headbutt you in your chest. Do you know how solid your head must be to think that that's the way to go? I kind of respect it. I've never seen a guy headbutt a chest, bro. Zidane, of course, got sent off, and France lost the World Cup final. But yet, it's still seen as a hero, because, well, it's a Dan lad. On Ronaldo and Nike 1998. Okay, so I've already done a video about this entire conspiracy. So if you want to see it, if you're interested in a much more in-depth video on my channel, video's right there. Go and check it out. You may find it interesting. But long story short, basically, on the day before the 1998 World Cup final, it was alleged that Ronaldo felt incredibly sick, thrown up everywhere, and was completely out of, like, he was not ready. He was not ready to play in a football match. Never mind ready to play in a World Cup final. He was not physically fit. Ronaldo was in a seizure-like state, and after his episode, he then woke up and was told afterwards what went on. This was on the day of the World Cup final between France and Brazil. Now, the conspiracy is the fact that Nike forced Ronaldo to play in the final because of marketing and sponsorship reasons. Mainly because the manager at the time took his name off the team sheet, and then after, for some reason, an hour before kickoff, his name got put back on the team sheet, even though he had a seizure earlier in the day. He was not ready to play in a game of that magnitude, in any game in general, but never mind a World Cup final, man. Tell me if you guys believe that. Diego Maradona, hand of God. Ha. I'm English, so this makes it fun. Of course, I wasn't born back then. I'm not in my 40s, so I can't really look back at this in really any sort of like anger or pain, because I wasn't born then. But from what I know from my family, he's not really a liked person with my granddad. He's not. The 1986 World Cup, Argentina versus England in the quarter-finals, held in Mexico, and Diego Maradona made that game his own. You don't even need to know football. This is how far this transcends. You don't need to care about football. You barely need to know that football even existed, and you would know this photo. You will know this photo. I don't care if you are like a badminton player. You may just read books all day. You may live in a rock. You may be like Patrick Star from SpongeBob, bro. You know this photo. You know the name Hand of God, and you may not even care about who's even involved, what game it was, and what part of the world it was in. It doesn't matter. Game just epitomizes Diego Maradona and his brilliance and just completely just wacky nature. The first goal in the game, of course, the famous Hand of God goal, where he roars like a salmon and literally palmed the ball in the back of the net above Shilton. And for whatever reason, not the linesman, not the referee, no one that has any indication of how to really change a game, didn't see it for whatever reason. It was perfectly placed. And what makes it even better, I guess, if you're Maradona, is that later on in that same game, and of course, Argentina went on to go and win that World Cup, and that is why Maradona is held so highly. That is why they compare Messi to Maradona so much, that Maradona literally dragged, by cheating almost as well, forced Argentina to have that World Cup, and that is why so many people compare Maradona and Messi. So that is now the surface level category done. Now let's enter into the first tier below the surface level. The things that you may know about, but not everyone. Okay, you may know about it, but some won't. Let's start off with Maradona again, and that is doping. It's Maradona, bro. He's most definitely doing drugs. Okay, he is. That's all I'm going to say. The guy did many drugs at one stage. Many stages, actually. But people still love England Euro 2020 final. England v Italy. In a game which, I'll be honest, I've still not fully looked back on to this day. And I've never seen the highlights of that game ever since. Obviously, I'm an Englishman. And the idea of that final and the fact that England did not win it is nearly a disgrace on itself. However, during that final, there was many other narratives and many other incidents which completely turned it into something much more than football. Number one being the chaos outside Wembley and in the other areas around the stadium. The complete chaos of fans just bombarding into Wembley Stadium. The destruction of many security areas around the ground, of many fans just simply storming the stadium to get in the ground. The idea of not being able to get a ticket for a European final. Keep in mind as well, this was during the COVID period as well, so tickets was even more limited and even harder to get than what they would have been prior, and that made a really bad look for the English game and for the English fans. And then full time happened, and the penalty shootout, where Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho and Bukayo Saka missed their penalties, which caused England to lose the Euros. And the racism targeted to all three of these players was really bad. One obvious event was a mural of Marcus Rashford around the Manchester area got defaced, which sparked something much more beautiful and a real sign of togetherness. I can't even imagine how much this probably made Scottish people or Irish people, Welsh people happy. Literally everything that could have gone wrong did, and would definitely for many people be one of the most memorable finals in history, and one that I will never look back on ever. Ronald Koeman v Germany, 1988. In the 1988 European semi-final, West Germany played against the Netherlands, which the Netherlands beat West Germany 2-1 in what was a famous victory in their nation's history. Off the back of the pain of losing to West Germany in the 1974 World Cup final, this still was raw within the nation. The memories of the Second World War still reigned as a major talking point throughout the entire campaign. Ronald Koeman equalised in the semi-final before Marco van Basten scored a 88th minute winner against the Germans. The entire Dutch nation erupted in jubilation. However, Ronald Koeman, with an act, sparked controversy across both nations, where the defender swapped shirts with West Germany's Olaf Thon, in which he took his shirt and pretended to wipe his ass with the German national team shirt in front of the German fans. This provided an image that you can see on screen right now, and for many years this made the papers and made the rounds across the entire world for multiple years. And to this day, when Netherlands do play against Germany, the rivalry between these nations always sparks up, with this being a massive talking point. Denmark Euro 1992. Many people to this day still forget that Denmark are European Championship holders, and in Euro 1992 they won that championship despite not even qualifying, and were only called up upon because of sanctions against Yugoslavia. They were given only a week's notice to get a squad together for the championship, and less than a month later, they were champions. This happened due to Yugoslavia at the time was in a state of civil war and were not allowed to take part in the tournament. Denmark failed to win their first 2 matches and managed to get themselves into the knockout rounds, eventually going through each stage to beat world champions Germany 2-0 in the final. The heroes of Denmark, Peter Schmeichel, Brian Laudrup, Henrik Larsson, a famous team of a nation that was never meant to be there in the first place, beating Jürgen Klinsmann's Germany. An achievement so remarkable that it may never be beaten again. Until 2004. Greece. Yes, you knew this was coming. Now, I didn't really know where to put Greece because everyone knows about Greece winning the Euros. However, because of the achievement was so remarkable, I didn't know whether to put them at the bottom or at the top or somewhere in the middle. So I decided for the middle. Greece winning the 2004 Euros is still regarded as one of football's most greatest achievements. When speaking about Leicester winning the Premier League back in 2016, people compare it to as being as insane as Greece winning the 2004 Euros. Before you forget, prior to winning the 2004 Euros, they didn't even qualify for the previous 5 European Championships. Only once in their entire history in all the other 10 European Championships, they even qualified. In 2004, this was their first time in 6 campaigns, and they went on to win the entire tournament in the most remarkable way, or for some, the most boring way. But hey, I'm not judging. They were in Group A with the host nation Portugal, Spain, and Russia, with Greece beating Portugal on the first game of the entire tournament, a already shock upset, and even with that win alone in the first game against the host nation, they already would have gone home proud. They later drew to Spain and lost to Russia, who came last in the group. Greece only qualified through to the next round due to most goals scored, as Greece scored 4 and conceded 4, and Spain scored 2 and conceded. So even the manner they qualified to the next round was fortunate. Now, quarterfinals. They faced a French team that 2 years later would make it into the World Cup final. Thierry Henry in 2004, prime Thierry Henry, Makelele, Zinedine Zidane, and Greece went on to win 1-0. How did they score, you may say? Well, it was a beautiful cross into the box and a beautiful header by the big man up top named Charistes. Semi-finals, the Czech Republic, who back in these days, the Czech Republic was a monster of a nation. Greece took them to extra time, where a set piece, another cross, and a corner scored by Greek centre-half Delas won in silver goal, which was one of the only times silver goal rule was ever used. Another 1-0 win to send them through to the final. And then waiting for them was the greatest story of all, the host nation, Portugal. They won 1-0 again by another cross and another corner. It was that man again, the big number 9, Charistes, that scored the winner in the 57th minute by another set piece, and history was made for the entirety of Greece as he went on to win the Euros against Portugal on their own turf. I'm trying to think of what the comparison even is to, let's say, a team doing this in this tournament. This is like if Romania or Albania just went on to win the entire tournament. It's that level of stupidity. This may never be beaten ever again, I'm sure of it. Italy v Soviet Union, 1968. The 1968 European Championships were very different compared to the modern iteration of the competition. Only 4 teams were involved. For one, there was no subs, and penalty shootouts never even existed. And so when Italy battled out a goalless draw against the Soviet Union in the semi-finals, the winner of the tie was decided by a coin toss. Gianfranco Fassetti was Italy's captain, the Inter Milan defender, as he simply picked tails. And tails was the correct choice. And that was it. That was it. I can't imagine that happening now. Can you imagine that? It's like playing tic-tac-toe or rock, paper, scissors to decide who's going through. 2002 South Korea scandal. So in the 2002 World Cup was held in South Korea, and there was many dodgy calls and dodgy decisions that was going on in particularly South Korea's favour. South Korea came fourth in the tournament, and they knocked out Italy and Spain. And I mean, in the background there'll be some footage here. There were some very weird decisions in that game, which led to a lot of controversy. And this is FIFA here, with what we know from the FIFA members. I wouldn't really put it past something maybe going down here. What I see from the consistency of the decisions and just how ridiculous some are between the Spanish and the Italian matches, I would be very surprised, because either the guy is stupid and he doesn't see how this looks absolutely awful, or he's just stupid in general, or he's been paid off. Russian doping. So in the 2018 World Cup, people found it a bit insane how so many players in the game, they were just absolutely insane. Mentally, physically, fitness-wise, they were pulling off incredible stats in their own World Cup, and that could be a big factor. The WADA set a 4-year doping ban on the Russian national football team after the World Cup, in terms of one of the players were alleged to have been found to be one of the doping players. This was an entire controversy in Russia for Olympians as well, not just the footballers. But yeah, Russia, man. Can you calm down for one fucking week? Argentina versus Peru, 1978 final. You may not have realised if you look down the history book, but Argentina beat Peru 6-0 in a World Cup final. They beat them 6-0. After the triumph, there were some alleged dirty tricks by the dictator at the time called George Fidela, or I'm probably saying that wrong, but Fidela. So if you don't know, in the 1978 World Cup, Argentina could have got knocked out of the group stage, and they had to go and win a game, the last game of the group stage, by a large margin. Came up Peru, in which they beat Peru 6-0, and it's been led by an investigation that there were some foul play that could have been happening in place in terms of bribes to the Peru team, and more specifically the Peru goalkeeper. Both leaders at the time between Argentina and Peru struck a deal that they would allow Argentina to beat them by more than 4 goals to confirm themselves through to the next round. Peruvian members came out saying that Videla needed to win the World Cup to cleanse Argentina's bad image around the world. Of course, this was a time, of the Falklands War between Argentina and England. This is all accusations, and allegedly there's been no official confirmation that there were bribes in place, but they beat Peru 6-0 and they needed 4 goals to make it to the next round. So I'm just saying, El Quinto Partido. I do love myself a good old-fashioned curse. This is Mexico and the curse of the 5th match in the World Cup. Only once in 1986 have they ever reached the 5th game, which is in the quarterfinals. Only once in their entire history. Since then, They have always struggled to get past that stage, and it's now well known as a curse held to the Mexican people. If you talk to a Mexican football fan, they'll talk to you about this, that this is quite well known in their culture. 7 consecutive times they made it to the round of 16, and all 7 times, going back to 1994, they faced Bulgaria, Germany, USA, Argentina twice, the Netherlands, and then Brazil. Each time they were knocked out in the round of 16, 7 times in a row. Why is the reason? Bad luck, bad refereeing, penalties, psychological battles. I guess we'll never know, but this is a curse which is well known in Mexican history in the World Cup. El Maracanazo. In 1990, in a FIFA World Cup qualification game between Brazil, of course, and Chile, Brazil was leading 1-0, in which later on in the game, in the second half, the Chilean goalkeeper Roberto Rojas had a flare thrown towards him, in which he pretended to be injured. Flare came towards him, he fell down to the ground in the 67th minute and pretended to be injured. All the Chilean officials, players, led by the captain, left the pitch in protest. The referees could not get them back on the pitch, and in response to this, what happened is that Chile got banned from participating in the 1990 World Cup qualifiers. They were no longer allowed to play any more games in qualification, even though it was the Brazilian fans that threw the flare to the goalkeeper. And then what makes it worse, the goalkeeper involved, Roberto Rojas, got banned for life. He never played again. Rojas being treated, Patricio Yanez made an obscene gesture to the Brazilian fans by grabbing his genital. This is now later known in Chile as Pato Yanez. Imagine being banned from the World Cup because your goalkeeper pretended to be injured. Like your entire country is out because of one person. That is mental. The Mighty Magyars. The Mighty Magyars, or the Golden Team, goes back to the great Hungarian side in the 50s, involving the likes of Puskás. In 69 games between 1950 to 1956, they had 58 wins out of 69 games, 10 draws, and 1 loss. And that loss was in the 1954 World Cup final against Germany, no less. Statistically, according to the BBC, they are still seen as one of the best sides in footballing history. Their formation being the 2-3-2-3-2 formation. That is their formation, which is quite mad. I can't have a World Cup video without them in there. So the Mighty Magyars, the Golden Team, forever down in football history. And most people will forget about them, sadly. Roger Mila. Oh, Roger Mila, my boy. He's a good vibe. He's a good vibe. Most people you may know this image here of Roger, the dance, the little like hips. You may not know who he is. Well, his name's Roger Mila, Cameroonian lad. Cameroonian legend, okay? Just look at him go. There's not much really to go with this. Just the fact that you may know this guy. And I like him. So, yeah. Roger Mila. Don't forget the name. What a hero. Paul the Octopus. Paul the Octopus. This goddamn octopus, bro. This guy ran the entirety. This Octopus was more famous than England in this World Cup, which is sad, but it is completely true. Octopus guessed 8 out of 8 predictions correct in the World Cup. Now, of course, there's absolutely no reason behind this at all. He's just a lucky octopus, okay? And there's also a conspiracy theory that he was actually dead halfway through, and it wasn't actually, you know, Paul, it was actually Dave. I don't know why there's a conspiracy theory over octopus, but there you go. But yeah, this Donny guessed 8 out of 8. They was inside a tanker, obviously, because it's an octopus, and he put food inside of, you know, inside both boxes, and it guessed correctly the one with the right flag on it, the result of the game. Does it mean anything? No, not at all. Is it funny? I guess. I guess. This was possibly the most famous parts that came out of that World Cup. This is up there with Jabulani and Vizeh. You'll never get this ever again. Each World Cup, you get like some Donny with like a parrot. Like, oh look, it's Steve the parrot. No, shut up, mate. Get a job, okay? Put the parrot in the cage, okay? And stop trying to be famous. Okay? I'm looking at you, mate. Let's start off with something that I actually never knew, and maybe you didn't either. The story goes all the way back to the 14th of December 2000. This came from a man called Horacio Gaglioli. I've definitely butchered that name. I'm so sorry. Gaglioli was an agent who actually saw Messi live at only 12 years of age. The story goes that Messi was given a trial at Barcelona, and he was actually in two minds from his father. He was in the middle of deciding between Barcelona of Real Madrid, mainly because Barcelona wasn't too sure about taking Messi in due to his stature. A Barcelona executive in Carles Risach, I'm definitely butchering these, I'm so sorry, in his own words said that it only took him a few minutes to know that he's seen someone special. Now, of course, hindsight is a wonderful thing, but maybe he actually did think that. However, Messi's father was not too convinced and was threatening to take Messi away and seeking a trial at Real Madrid. So in a quick turn of events, Messi was signed, but it was all on a whim. They were not in an office and they had no intention of making a signing that day. So they used the next best thing, a paper napkin that was given by a waiter. On the image you see in front of you is the paper napkin held by Horacio Gaglioli, an agent involved in Messi's transfer to Barcelona, stating on a napkin the following: signed by all parties involved. And that is officially how Messi was signed to Barcelona. Steven Gerrard's slip. After 24 years without the title coming back to Anfield, in the 2013-14 season, it finally looked like the year that Liverpool would go on to win the Premier League. Liverpool played Chelsea at home. The team coach each week was greeted by fans chanting, "We're gonna win the league." Liverpool were only 3 wins away from winning the Premier League after previously beating Man City earlier in the month. Up faced a weakened Chelsea side in the middle of 2 Champions League semi-final legs. In that win to Manchester City, Steven Gerrard got the players together in a speech saying, "We do not let this slip." Well, on this fateful day, things took an incredible turn. Just before half-time, a pass came from Mamadou Sakho as it came to Steven Gerrard. For some reason, the ball slips underneath his foot, allowing Demba Ba to run straight on through on goal and tucking it past Simon Mignolet to put Chelsea ahead. Liverpool went on to lose that game 2-0 to Chelsea. However, they had another chance away at Crystal Palace. Liverpool was 3-0 up in a game away at Palace with the title at their mercy until a miraculous comeback made it 3-3 by an equaliser by Dwight Gale. This put it in the hands of Manchester City and Liverpool went on to lose that Premier League title. To this day, still one of the most incredible mistakes in Premier League history. Duckerdam 1986. One of the most incredible European Cup finals. Helmuth Duckerdam was a goalkeeper for Stella and wasn't the best player even in the national team, as he only played 2 times for the Romanian national team. However, despite his lack of appearances for the Romanian national team, he became a legend of Romania. On May the 7th, 1986, the Romanian goalkeeper in the city of Seville earned a place in Romanian folklore, as he single-handedly at this stage gave Romania its proudest footballing moment, a European title. Stella Bucharest won the UEFA Champions League, and in incredible fashion, beating Barcelona in a penalty shootout, saving not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 penalties in a single shootout. 4 penalties taken, 4 penalties saved. Potentially one of the greatest stories in European Cup history. Not just a fantastic underdog story, but a fantastic way to do it as well. Everyone raise your glass and have a toast to the man himself, the hero himself, Helmuth Duckerdam. The surface. Kieran Gibbs' red card. On March 22nd, 2014, the most baffling refereeing decisions took place in a match between Chelsea and Arsenal for Arsene Wenger's 1000th game in charge, in a match that led to a 6-0 thrashing of Arsenal. You would have thought this would have took the headlines, but a refereeing clamour by Andre Mariner stole the headlines. With Arsenal already 2 goals down after 7 minutes, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain desperately used his hand to tip Eden Hazard's shot around the post on the line, conceding a penalty and a certain red card. However, unfortunately for Mariner, he thought it was Kieran Gibbs that made the handball and showed the red card to the wrong man. Kieran Gibbs were understandably furious and confused, with Oxlade-Chamberlain pleading to the referee that it was him and begged that Kieran Gibbs would be rescinded. However, by the rules, the decision was final and the left back made his way down the tunnel. This has to be one of the most embarrassing errors in refereeing history, especially at the top level. Adebayor celebration. In the year 2009, Emmanuel Adebayor transferred from Arsenal to Manchester City. Despite playing for Arsenal, Adebayor publicly discloses his hatred for the club after the way that he was treated describing Arsene Wenger as a fake manager. Adebayor claimed that in a meeting between him and Arsene Wenger in his office, Arsene Wenger told him that he didn't see a future at Arsenal anymore for Emmanuel Adebayor. Adebayor had no choice but to join Manchester City. Allegedly, Arsene Wenger had a press conference the day after his signing for Manchester City, stating that Adebayor left because he wanted the money. Adebayor did not appreciate that, so when he scored against Arsenal in the 80th minute, he did the most incredible celebration, sprinting as fast as he could to the other end of his ground, and no one was going to stop him. The former Arsenal man ran the length of the pitch to slide on his knees in front of the away section. Coins, lighters, and even a plastic stool rained down on the pitch from the away end. Adebayor practically set off a riot. Paul the Octopus. Paul the Octopus was a famous gimmick back in the 2010 South Africa World Cup, and was a very simple concept. It was an aquarium in Western Germany that, at the start of the World Cup, had a little gimmick where they had two boxes, and each having a separate nation's flag. They put food in each of the boxes, and Paul the Octopus decides which one to eat from first. And the first box with their nation's flag on it, that would be the team that will go on and win the game. Throughout the 2010 World Cup, he predicted 8 games and got all 8 games correct. This included each of Germany's group stage games, where he picked Germany each time to win, and then he predicted Germany to beat Argentina, England, but for the semi-finals he predicted Spain to beat Germany, and Spain of course went on to beat Germany. He predicted Germany to beat Uruguay in the 3rd place playoff, and in the final between Netherlands and Spain, he again predicted Spain. So what is the conspiracy? Well, this all came from Jiang Zhao, who is a director and created a thriller titled Who Killed Paul the Octopus? Theory that Paul the Octopus actually was dead for the last 3 months, and was 60 to 70% sure that he died in July, and was secretly replaced by his keepers to keep the gimmick going. When being asked why do they believe this, she added, "Octopuses all look the same. It is impossible to tell the difference." I don't need to really explain it anymore. 1966 World Cup fixed. A very, very popular conspiracy, and this all came from the former FIFA president, João Havelange, who was a former president that was in office from 1974 until 1998. He made the claim that the 1966 World Cup was fixed alongside the 1974 World Cup. In 2008, spoke out saying that it was planned for the host countries, England and Germany, to win. Havelange, who is Brazilian, of course also added that Brazil was hard done by this, and at the time they were the best in the world that won the 1962 and 1970 World Cup. His proof of why this was rigged came from only one thing, that British referees was picked for the 1966 World Cup for the large chunk of it, picked by the FIFA predecessor, who was also English in Sir Stanley Roos. This did add a little bit more believability when of course the goal in the actual 1966 World Cup final, when Jeff Hurst's shot was given as a goal, claiming that it went over the line. Many believe that it did not go over the line, and proof that it was indeed rigged, and that the tournament was rigged for the host nation to win. Argentina vs Peru 1978 final. You may not have realised if you look down the history book, but Argentina beat Peru 6-0 in a World Cup final. They beat them 6-0. After the triumph, there were some alleged dirty tricks by the dictator at the time called George Fidela, or I'm probably saying that wrong, but Fidela. So if you don't know, in the 1978 World Cup, Argentina could have got knocked out of the group stage, and they had to go and win a game, the last game of the group stage, by a large margin. Came up Peru, in which they beat Peru 6-0, and it's been led by an investigation that there were some foul play that could have been happening in place in terms of bribes to the Peru team, and more specifically specifically the Peru goalkeeper. Both leaders at the time between Argentina and Peru struck a deal that they would allow Argentina to beat them by more than 4 goals to confirm themselves through to the next round. Peruvian members came out saying that Videla needed to win the World Cup to cleanse Argentina's bad image around the world. Of course, this was a time, of the Falklands War between Argentina and England. This is all accusations, and allegedly there's been no official confirmation that there were bribes in place, but they beat Peru 6-0 and they needed 4 goals to make it to the next round. So I'm just saying. Aaron Ramsey curse. One of the most famous conspiracies that I've known growing up is the Aaron Ramsey curse. This is the famous curse that when Aaron Ramsey scores a goal, a famous celeb passes away only days afterwards. The deaths caused by Aaron Ramsey seem to be between 3 days after the goal, and 21 people have been claimed by Aaron Ramsey allegedly. This includes Andreas Montes, Osama bin Laden, Steve Jobs, Gaddafi, Whitney Houston, Paul Walker, and Robin Williams, with many more. Aaron Ramsey scored 80 goals during his career, and only 20 goals seem to have some sort of link. A newspaper called El Mundo about his beliefs about this conspiracy, he said that it is a stupid rumour and that he does not find it funny in the slightest. Leeds United, 1975. I found an article by the Yorkshire Post stating the following: why Leeds United regard themselves as a 1975 European Cup champions. Leeds United were in a 1975 European Cup final, and they came up against German Goliaths Bayern Munich. On May 28, 1975, at the Parc des Princes in Paris, Don Revie's Leeds United was ready to bring home the ultimate glory. The referee went by the name of Mikel Kitabjan. I'm so sorry for butchering that name. In the 23rd minute, Leeds player Peter Lormier went around Franz Beckenbauer in the penalty area, and the ball hit Beckenbauer's left arm, which this penalty was not given. 11 minutes later, Beckenbauer then scissor tackled Alan Clark. And that was not the only thing Beckenbauer did, as Peter Lormier put the ball in the back of the net. The goal went in, but Beckenbauer spoke to the referee, and after this talk, the referee pointed to the spot and ruled the goal offside, saying that Leeds player Bremer was interfering with play. However, people believe that he did not. Bayern player Franz Roth scored the goal, and 6 minutes later, the game was held up as objects were being thrown by the Leeds fans. Due to the reaction by the fans, Leeds were given a 4-year ban, but was halved on appeal. So throughout this night, a goal for Leeds were unruled for offside, which they believe was not just. Beckenbauer handled the ball in the box, and then also brought down Alan Clark in the box. Both were ignored. The referee was never investigated. Were Leeds United robbed of a European Cup? Dundee United, 1984. Similar to Leeds United, Dundee United were also robbed of potential European glory. We were robbed, said by veteran of Dundee United John Holt. Dundee United faced Roma in the European Cup semi-finals. After winning 2-0 in the first leg, Jim McLean's Dundee United went on to lose that second leg 3-0 at Rome Stadio Olimpico, shattering the dreams of being in a European Cup final. Shortly after the full-time whistle, many of the Dundee United players and manager were verbally and physically assaulted by the Roma players. The Italians accused the Scottish players of being on drugs, and confirmation years later that the French match official Michel Valtrout had been bribed £50,000 by AS Roma ahead of the match. The Dundee United players accused the referee of giving free kicks when they hardly touched the players, feeling that the referee gave more than they did for them than what they did for Dundee United. Dundee United could have played Liverpool in the European Cup final, and you never know what could have happened. Solina versus Everton. Pierluigi Solina. Many football fans love him. However, for Everton fans, they may have a different opinion of him. As for Everton fans, he is infamous for one bitter summer's night in Spain. In the 2004-05 season, Everton finished 4th and qualified for the Champions League qualification places, as back in these days you didn't guarantee a group stage finish by finishing 4th. This means that you had to go through the qualifying stages to reach the group stage of the Champions League, and in this qualifying stage they faced Villarreal. This was a Villarreal team of Riquelme, Diego Forlan, was a fantastic team, and after beating Everton 2-1 at Goodison Park, Everton beating Villarreal in Spain was always going to be a tough ask. Villarreal made it 1-0 in the second leg early on, but came a lifeline. Mikel Arteta, a free kick in the 69th minute, making it 3-2, and with a second goal would make it level on aggregate. A corner to Everton late on in the game, and Duncan Ferguson with a bullet header, 3-3 on aggregate, and Everton were going to go to extra time. Or so they thought. What would have been a defining goal in Everton's history, who previously was in retirement, purely came out of retirement just for this one game, and retired immediately afterwards, blew his whistle and awarded Villarreal a free kick for apparent infringement from Marcus Bent. Looking back on this goal, I have no idea what the foul was given for. Many Everton fans look back on this one moment as a defining moment in the recent history for what could have been. Hampden Park Square goalpost. Back in the good old days, not every single goalpost in football were always round. Sometimes they were indeed square. It was only until 1964 that stadiums started installing round goalposts, but at Hampden Park in Scotland, they still retained their square ones. This caused incredible controversy back in the 1976 European Cup final between Saint Etienne and Bayern Munich. During the first half of the match, Saint Etienne's Dominique Baffinet shot against the face of the crossbar, and a header by Jacques Santini hit the edge of the goalpost and went back into play. Saint Etienne alleged that had the goalpost been round, at least one of the two incidents the ball would have bounced into the goal. However, instead, tragically for them, they lost the match 1-0. They gained a nickname in France of being the French excuse, and even Saint Etienne fan groups and cafes around the club even named themselves after the Hampden goalpost. Where are those goalposts, you may say? Well, Saint Etienne now has them. In 2013, they did actually request to buy the goalpost, and they did for €20,000. And their goalpost can be found in their Saint Etienne museum. The owner of the museum put a request to UEFA to have the goalpost used in the Euro 2016 final. They sadly didn't respond. Lehmann 2006 final. Another incident that involves Barcelona, this time tragically for Arsenal. In the 2006 Champions League final, Barcelona played against Arsenal, a massive opportunity to become legends. In their run, Arsenal knocked out Real Madrid, Juventus and Villarreal to face Barcelona. However, the final became a nightmare early on, as only 18 minutes in, Arsenal goalkeeper Jens Lehmann was sent off. Ronaldinho set Samuel Eto'o through on goal, as Jens Lehmann came out and made contact with the Cameroon striker. However, despite the Barcelona player Ludovic Hullet immediately putting the ball in the back of the net, the referee ruled out the goal and then gave Lehmann a red card instead. A decision that he would later admit to regretting. Of course, hindsight is a wonderful thing in this incident. Maybe if the goal stood but Lehmann remained on the pitch, they would have went on to lose anyway, and that could have been the case. Arsenal did make the most out of it and indeed did go 1-0 up due to a Sol Campbell bullet header. With 10 men, Arsenal were leading 1-0 in the Champions League final till the 76th minute until Samuel Eto'o scored to make it 1-1, and then only a few minutes later, Juliano Belletti then scored in the 80th, making it 2-1 to Barcelona, and he went on to win the final. Did this moment cost Arsenal a Champions League, or would it have not mattered anyway? Tell me down below. The body. Juventus versus Ajax, 1996. Another big moment in another European final, where the stakes cannot be any higher. Some teams take matters into their own hands to be in charge of their own destiny. This was a Juventus team of Alessandro Del Piero, Gianluca Vialli and Fabrizio Ravanelli up against Ajax, who were the reigning champions and the envy of the entirety of Europe, with the likes of Edwin van der Sar, Jari Litmanen, Patrick Kluivert and Edgar Davids, and both De Boer brothers. Led by Louis van Gaal, they were the team to beat in Europe. The game went on as normal, as Juventus won on penalties. After the game finishing 1-1, Juventus won 4-2 on penalties. Although Juventus won the Champions League final, the victory remains controversial because of accusations of doping. In November 2004, the Juventus club doctor Riccardo Agricola was given a 22-month prison sentence and fined €2,000 for sporting fraud by providing performance-enhancing drugs, specifically EPO, to players between 1994 and 1998. Doctors confirmed that they were practically certain that 2 players in Antonio Conte took EPO, which is also known as erythropoietin. I'm so sorry for butchering that. They also claimed that it was very likely that at least 8 other players on the team, including Del Piero and Didier Deschamps, was also taking this too. Despite these accusations, they always remained that accusations, and that in the years of 1994 to 1998, there were no positive proof by any Juventus players during this time. However, still to this day, Ajax general manager still feels bitter and sick, feeling like Ajax were cheated out of a second Champions League title. UEFA Barcelona investigation 2023. Let's get into Barcelona, shall we? Throughout this video, you may have seen a few common topics when it involves Barcelona, and quite coincidentally, being in the favour of Barcelona. UEFA is currently investigating Barcelona over the potential of match fixing. Barcelona has been charged with corruption by prosecutors over alleged payments made by the club to the then vice president of the Spanish referees committee. This involves the club maintaining a relationship with Jose Maria Enriquez Negria, in which, in exchange for money, he carried out actions that would lead to Barcelona being favoured in the decision making of the referees. How much money we're talking of here? Well, the prosecution says that £6.46 million were paid by the club to 2 separate companies, both owned by Negria. This investigation is still ongoing, and we should hopefully receive a conclusion to if they will be banned from UEFA competition later on this month of June, as quoted by UEFA President Alexander Seferin, saying, "I have been informed that the situation is extremely serious. It is so serious that, in my opinion, it is one of the most serious in football that I have seen. There has been reports by El Mundo that payments have been made directly from Barcelona to Negria. That period of time includes Laporta's first spell as club president. There is no evidence of any referees or any individual games that may have been influenced, but in the next few weeks and months, more information should be found, and this could be as serious as you can imagine if this investigation comes out that they have been found guilty, and the ramifications that this may cause." PSG versus Istanbul Başakşehir. Remember earlier in the video that I spoke about the AC Milan v Inter derby and the fact that it was abandoned? Well, it wasn't the only match that has been found to be abandoned in recent history. As we go back to December 2020, a match between PSG and Istanbul Başakşehir was abandoned because of alleged racism. Players from both sides walked off the pitch on Tuesday, alleging that a match official used racial language towards the Turkish side's assistant coach, claiming that the 4th official, Sebastian Coletu of Romania, used a racial term against the assistant coach from Cameroon. Başakşehir's club president and players demanded that they would not go back onto the field as long as the 4th referee is still there. After a consultation with both teams, the match would restart with a different 4th official. With TV footage, we found what the 4th official said to Weibo, saying, and I quote, "The black one over there. Go and check who he is. The black one over there," after Weibo had protested against a refereeing decision. A famous clip from Demba Ba repeatedly going to the 4th official, demanding, saying, "Why, when you mention a black guy, did you have to say this black guy?" The match was abandoned and the game was played the day afterwards. During this game, PSG went on to win 5-1. Cantona karate kick. In what was potentially the most shocking moment in Premier League history, on January 1995, Crystal Palace hosted Manchester United. And on this night, Eric Cantona, Manchester United's legendary player, ended up in a prison cell. The match was a ordinary 1-1 draw, and Cantona had been sent off. He was dismissed for kicking out on Richard Shaw after losing his temper with a series of rough challenges. Cantona made his way to the tunnel until supporter Matthew Simmons rushed down to the front row at Selhurst Park. He taunted Cantona, saying, "Off you go, Cantona, it's an early bath for you. In court, Cantona claimed that there was a crude insult aimed at his mother. The United man lost all control, breaking away, jumping over the advertising boardings to aim a kung fu kick at supporter Simmons, before following up a series of punches. After being pulled away by his teammates, Cantona eventually left the field, but everyone left the stadium astonished. The punishment was severe. The FA banned him for 9 months, calling the attack a stain on our game. He lost France captaincy and was never selected for his country ever again, and had a 2-week jail sentence reduced to an appeal of 120 hours of community service. Years later, when Cantona was asked about his greatest moment in the game, he said, "I have a lot of good moments, but the one I prefer is when I kicked the hooligan." Eduardo versus Birmingham City. In the 07-08 season, Arsenal was on a title charge and went to the Midlands to Birmingham to continue their form. 3 minutes into this game, a horrific tackle took place. As to many people, they look back on as the worst injury they have ever seen on a football pitch. With less than 3 minutes gone at St Andrews, Birmingham City's defender Taylor flew in for a challenge on the Croatian striker Eduardo. As he flew in, Eduardo just nipped the ball away with his foot, leaving Taylor's studs to smash not into the ball, but into his leg, just above his ankle. I don't even know if I can show the photograph on this video, just in case if it does get demonetized. A replay of this tackle was never shown, and Taylor was shown a straight red and received a 3-match ban, despite calls from the FIFA president Sepp Blatter for that number to be increased. Arsene Wenger initially said that Taylor should never play football again. Taylor claiming that he visited Eduardo in hospital and that an apology was accepted. Eduardo, however, could not even remember his visit or even the tackle itself. Iran v Bahrain 2002. Iran was on the verge of qualifying for the 2002 FIFA World Cup and just needed a win against a mediocre Bahrain side to secure that qualifying spot. However, in this game, a poor Iran barely even had a shot and slumped to a 1-0 defeat, leading them to go into the playoffs and being knocked out by the Republic of Ireland. After being knocked out, a storm broke, with journalists alleging that the team had been ordered to take it easy by the Iranian government, claiming that the government of Iran believes it undesirable for a large number of youths to congregate on the streets of Tehran, which occurred during the last World Cup as Iran beat the US. Not wanting history to repeat itself again, the conspiracy comes that they wanted them to purposely not make it to the World Cup so that this does not happen again. France versus Ireland, Thierry Henry. To this day, if you try and speak to an Irishman about Thierry Henry, he won't look you in the eyes. If he does look at you, it'll be a pure look of disgust. They absolutely despise this man. I remember this so well. It was in the final qualifier to qualify for the 2010 World Cup South Africa. It's gone all the way to the final few minutes. Free kick put into the box, and it is, I mean, you could just look at it, man. Just look at, he's not just handballed it once, but he's handballed it multiple times. He's handballed it multiple times to control the ball and get the ball into the box. And that was not given as a handball. And that led to that goal was the reason why Ireland were not at the 2010 World Cup. That is just fucking hell. Imagine this being the reason why you were not at the World Cup, that you got knocked out, you didn't get a chance because of this. I just can't believe it, man. I really can't. In some sort of karma, France, of course, went on to that World Cup and absolutely collapsed. It was a complete mess, a complete state. And I guess you could say that karma was indeed dealt very well. If it means anything, Irish lads, at least they embarrassed themselves. Cameroon 2002 jersey. There's not many kits in football history that gets banned, but Cameroon somehow managed to pull that one off. That in 2002, they rocked with this bad boy. It's missing sleeves. It's a vest. This got banned. Do you know how hard it is to get a shirt banned for a national team? It got banned at the World Cup because of, I believe, sponsorship reasons or something. How do you get a shirt banned, lads? The funny thing is, this isn't just one time, but it's 2 times as well that Cameroon has got their shirts banned, because they went from this, the vest top with no sleeves, which is actually quite a banger, to be fair. I rate the idea. They went from that and thought, you know what, yeah, how about we do a one-piece kit? They were just taking the... I massively respect Cameroon. They had a one-piece kit. It was connected, the shorts and the shirt. Do you know how dumb that sounds? But they rocked it. And they had that banned too. It isn't anything serious. It's just rare that you get a shirt banned at the World Cup. Like, it's just fair play. 1990 holy water scandal. In the 1990 World Cup, Argentina played against Brazil. And in great South American fashion, it led to some stupid occurring. Argentina beat Brazil 1-0 by a goal by Claudio Caniggia. I'm so sorry. At the end of the match, a Brazilian player called Branco accused the Argentinian training staff of giving him a bottle of water laced with tranquilizers while they were tending to an injured player. And the reason why this was called holy water scandal was that years later, Maradona admitted, for some reason, on television that it was true and that Branco was given holy water. And from then on in, it was called the holy water scandal. A Brazilian player got given tranquilizers, for fuck's sake, apparently. From what Maradona said, then went to the staff team of Argentina, and their response was, I'm not saying it didn't happen. Are you mad? They literally drugged one of the Brazilian players and called it holy water. Tranquilizers, bro. Can you South Americans just like have one day of like normality, lads? One day. Graham Paul 2006 World Cup. So Graham Paul, you may not know his name, probably because he's a referee. Now, why is a referee here? Is it another scandal? Is it maybe another bribe? No. Step number 1 of being like a human that's like professional at life. Counting. Learn to count. This is a referee that gave not just 1, not 2, but 3 yellow cards in a World Cup match. In 2006, Croatia played against Australia, and one Croatian player called Sumanic got given 3 yellow cards in the same game by the same referee, and still did not get red carded. I'm not even like, this is, you can see it right here. It's right there, lads. Okay, right there. He got yellow carded 3 times and still did not get red carded. This is nothing serious. You may not even know this happened. Maybe you do. I don't know. It's just funny. Of course, understandably, Graham Paul was never seen ever again. He got just completely fired. The 1954 World Cup fixed. So yeah, the World Cup was held in Italy in 1954. Italy won it. People like to say that it's fixed and it's dictators towards it, and Mussolini, I'm not gonna lie, probably was. This is literally before World War II. I think a lot more crazy things are happening later on. So to imagine this was fixed and some bribes went on in place, probably the least surprising thing I've heard so far in this video. So probably. Probably. The 1966 World Cup fixed. There's a lot of fixings here, a lot of scandals. The main example is the fact that the goal in the World Cup final against West Germany was actually probably not a goal, but they had no VAR. So was it fixed? I don't know, but probably. Do we care? No. It's coming home, lads. Messi's international retirement. On June 27th, 2016, Messi decided to retire from international football. At the age of just 29, he publicly stated that he wanted to hang up his boots from the Argentinian national team. After losing the 2014 World Cup to Germany, 2015 Copa America final to Chile, and the 2015 Copa America Centenario, yet again, to Chile, after losing 3 finals in a row, he publicly stated that he was going to retire from football. Even though at the time, many people felt like it was just him being emotional and that he may not even really mean it. Of course, even though that with hindsight, we all know what happened later on. He came back to Argentina for the 2018 World Cup and continued to the 2022 World Cup, that we all know what happened there, and it all came together perfectly. However, during this time period, Argentinians really went up against Messi, and some still kind of don't forgive him to this day now, and why Argentinians still see Diego Maradona up above Messi, mainly because of this one act alone, that they felt like he turned his back on his own country, and no matter what he did, his actions still stay in the heart of Argentinians. Sometimes I do imagine a world of what would have happened if he stayed retired. I really do wonder. The Ronaldo wink. Oh boy, this was a fun time. The 2006 Germany World Cup. It is the quarterfinals and it is Portugal versus England. Ronaldo and Rooney was always seen as a dynamic duo during a time at Manchester United, and during this game it caused one of the most incredible scenes in recent football history, at this time anyway. England players at World Cups always have some controversy, and especially with red cards, the most famous being David Beckham in 1998. However, it appeared to happen again, with Wayne Rooney stamping on Ricardo Carvalho. This led to Portugal protest, and right in the referee's face was Cristiano Ronaldo. Instantly, Wayne Rooney saw this and shoved Ronaldo back in frustration. Rooney feeling like his teammate is stabbing him in the back, and instantly, Rooney was given a red card. Now, there is no confidence to say if he got red carded because of the push to Ronaldo or the stamp itself, we may never know. However, what happened next set people off. Cameras zoomed in to Ronaldo looking towards the Portugal subs bench, and during this, it appeared that Ronaldo made a wink to the bench. This was captured and put all over TVs across England, and you can imagine this absolutely lit up the country. At the time, this was huge. Manchester United's two biggest players in Ronaldo and Rooney going neck and neck in one of the most controversial moments in recent World Cup history. Is this damage that can never be repaired, and could it see the fall of Sir Alex Ferguson's Man United? Ronaldo did admit that he was indeed scared to return back to England, just in case of what may happen from not only the players but the fans. And if you want to know how it went down, apparently this made their relationship even stronger, surprisingly enough. They wanted to prove people wrong, and with history, it looks like they did that. Messi spitting incident. Back in 2008, Messi had a bit of a controversy with Barcelona, where he was reprimanded by Pep Guardiola for allegedly spitting at an opponent. This all came in a 4-1 win over Malaga, where apparently Messi appeared to spit on Portuguese midfielder Duda. Guardiola, in his own words, deemed the incident unacceptable. And sometimes it can go the other way around, where back in 2015 a massive incident happened where River Plate fans spat on Lionel Messi in a Club World Cup final. Barca won the Club World Cup final 3-0, and allegedly a report came out from Marca explaining that Messi was spat on at passport control. Ronaldo's interview. Absolute insanity occurred less than 12 months ago when Cristiano Ronaldo had an interview about 2 hours long with Piers Morgan. Yeah, a lot was said during this interview, but one thing is for certain, that it definitely felt like ending of a legacy at Manchester United. By no means does this mean that his legacy is therefore tainted during his last 18 months at Man United. However, it definitely doesn't make it any better. Questions of him being disrespected by Eric Ten Hag or by, I forgot the other guy's name, he's so irrelevant now. This pretty much was all anyone talked about, because it was so odd to see going semi-in-depth into his time at United and how he felt about how he was treated. Give me your thoughts down below about this interview. Messi versus Chile. Potentially one of the greatest rivalries in recent football history is Lionel Messi versus Chile. When Argentina plays against Chile, then you know it's going to be a wild game. Chile not once but twice getting in the way of Lionel Messi lifting international silverware for Argentina, but also in recent years claims of corruption when it comes to Lionel Messi gaining a red card back in 2019, making allegations that after he was sent off over their win v Chile, saying, and I quote, "We don't need to be part of the corruption that we've suffered at this tournament." One of the most famous and iconic images of Lionel Messi was this, with the likes of Alexis Sanchez peeking his head over the back of his shoulder, which to this day I still see this photo almost every week. CR7 Jr.'s mother. Now I kind of feel weird bringing this up because really it does feel a bit personal, but putting it out there because I feel like people will say, why is this not in here? There has always been a bit of a story around the mother of his son Cristiano Jr., and to this day it's never been stated who the mother is. Some claims that it was simply a waitress that didn't want to be known into the public light and simply wanted to remain anonymous. I feel like I'm like a gossip channel now, but I guess that's the point of this video. Apparently, according to Ronaldo, when his son was born back in June 2010, it was stated in that post that, as agreed with the baby's mother, who prefers to have her identity kept confidential, my son will be under my exclusive guardianship. That's the only thing for sure. Australia witch doctor. In November 1969, the Socceroos travelled to Mozambique to play against what was at the time Rhodesia, or is now Zimbabwe, in a two-part series to qualify for the 1970 World Cup in Mexico. However, in a two-leg match, both games were draws and the third fixture was announced. The story goes that a local journalist gave the Australian team a tip and said that they can use a witch doctor to help them beat the Rhodesian team. They saw it as no harm to give it a chance. So, later that night, a Enyunga went to the pitch where the game was being played and buried some bones near the goalpost and placed a curse on the Rhodesian team. So when they did play that third game, Australia won 3-1. However, when the Enyunga asked to be paid for his services, the players were either unwilling or unable to pay, leading to Enyunga to have a reverse curse on the Socceroos, and that lasted for 35 years. The godfather of Australian football, Johnny Rowan, once spoke of the incident, claiming that from that moment, everything went wrong for the Australian national team. A countless amount of gut-wrenching losses caused the Socceroos to never qualify for a World Cup for many years. The last time was in 1974. One famous game was back in 1997 when they had a shock loss to Iran in Melbourne to fail to qualify for the 1998 World Cup. Many believing that the witch doctor's curse was still on the Australian national team, so they went out of their way to try to break the curse. So they took matters into their own hands. So the Socceroos travelled back to Mozambique, where they met a couple of Enyungas called Paulinho and Miriam, and on that very same football pitch where they beat Rhodesia in 1969 and performed a ritual to lift the heads, which included covering saffron in chicken's blood. Saffron went back to Australia and was covered in a special clay. They completed the ritual, and long behold, when Australia played against Uruguay to qualify for the 2006 World Cup, long behold, they qualified for the World Cup, beating them on penalties. This was a true curse that many people believed was actually put on the Socceroos, and you know what, God Almighty, I believe it too. Ali Dia. It is often said that it pays to have friends in high places, but in Ali Dia's case, it was his cousin, allegedly George Weah, who helped him to win a chance in the Premier League with Southampton. Southampton boss Graham Souness took a call from the former Ballon d'Or winner. George Weah recommended the 30-year-old Senegal international, who played for the likes of Paris Saint-Germain. Souness took the opportunity and signed Dia up on an initial 1-month contract. Two small problems. It wasn't George Weah that rang him at all, and number two, Dia was a university student in Portsmouth. Ali Dia was named on the bench for a home game against Leeds United, and Dia shockingly made his Premier League debut, being subbed on for Matt Le Tissier, who was taken off injured 33 minutes into the game. After being subbed on in the 33rd minute, he was subbed off by the 52nd minute. Le Tissier claimed him to be Bambi on ice. Soon after, George Weah confirmed that it was not him that called him and had no idea who Ali Dia was. Southampton sacked him after 14 days into his contract. However, he did live the dream of becoming a Premier League player. The Darkness. Fabrice Muamba. In the 2011-2012 season, Bolton Wanderers played against Tottenham Hotspur at White Hart Lane. The game went on as normal. However, on the 43rd minute, Fabrice Muamba, the 23-year-old midfielder for Bolton Wanderers, collapsed. The stadium fell silent, and medical staff huddled around him, and the match was abandoned. Fabrice Muramba's heart stopped beating for 78 minutes. Muramba suffered a cardiac arrest in the middle of the football pitch, in what was perhaps the most public cardiac arrest in history, as well as one with the most miraculous ending. Muramba survived this event by incredible reaction from the medical team on the day. Their decisions saved his life after being shocked 15 times before his heart was restarted. Thankfully, Fabrice is still with us to this very day. Even though he may not be able to play football, he is alive, and that is the main thing. Ryan Mason versus Chelsea. In the 2016-17 Premier League season, Hull City played at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea beat Hull 2-0, but the scoreline didn't matter. Hull City had a corner during the game, and when the ball was crossed in, Ryan Mason and Gary Cahill both competed for the ball, both leaping into the air for a header. When competing for the ball, Cahill missed it, and instead of heading the ball, it led to a clash of heads with Ryan Mason on the floor for 9 minutes straight. Ryan Mason from this incident sustained a fractured skull, leading to 14 metal plates in his skull with 28 screws holding them in place and 45 staples. Due to the location of where the contact took place, it was a very sensitive part of his skull. Ryan Mason could have very easily lost his life this night, as not only was his skull fractured, but had a very high potential for brain damage. 61 minutes after the collision took place, he was already being operated on at St. Mary's Hospital. This decision possibly saved his life, and sadly from this event, Ryan Mason had to retire from football indefinitely. Racing Club Cat Curse. One of the most infamous curses in football history, where Argentinian club Racing Club was allegedly cursed back in 1967 by their rivals. This all comes from when they were at their peak in Argentinian football and was at a time one of the most successful Argentinian clubs. This all came from the 1967 Copa Libertadores, where Racing Club beat their rival club, Club Atlético Independiente, in a third playoff match. The story goes that when Racing Club supporters were celebrating their title, Independiente supporters broke into the home stadium of Racing and proceeded to bury 7 dead cats in the ground of their stadium, and this ritual was supposed to cast a curse on Racing Club, and as stupid as this may seem, it did end up working. Since that day, Racing Club was not the same. As each year that went by, they seemed to get worse and worse, never winning any silverware, and then got relegated to the second division in 1983. They did win a Sudamericana in 1988, however, their luck got even worse, as the same year Racing faced financial problems and resulted in Racing Club declaring bankruptcy. It was at this stage that Racing Club fans felt like the curse was actually real. So, in hopes to lift the curse, over 100,000 Racing Club fans gathered and started searching for the 7 cat bodies in the grounds of the stadium. And despite their massive number, they only ever found 6 of the 7 buried cat corpses. Therefore, fast forward almost 2 years later to 2001, and Racing appointed a new manager, Reinaldo Melo, who immediately declared that he would not be stopped until the last cat body is found. And it went so far that they ordered to dig the entire pitch. They demolished and renovated the entire stadium to get rid of the curse, and it finally paid off, as that 7 cat body was found. And guess what? That same year, Racing Club won the Argentine Primera Division for the first time since 1966. That means it took 35 years to become the winners of Argentinian football yet again. This is one of the most incredible curses in football history, and the fact that things turn good almost immediately adds a lot of weight to this. Yeah, so I think you know what's coming, and I kind of don't know how to really enter this without really putting myself in hot water here, but I'm going to try my best. There's 2 things in here, one that I'm sure you are very well aware of, and another one back in 2005. So let's get into the unknown one first. Both involving Ronaldo and both involving accusations of PE. On the 19th of October 2005, an article came out from The Guardian claiming that Cristiano Ronaldo was arrested with an inquiry and questioned by the police, claiming that he went voluntarily to a police station to speak to the police regarding an allegation by a woman. The allegations was of SA in a penthouse suite in central London, and Manchester United at this time of course made no comment. The main one that I'm sure you are waiting for is Las Vegas 2009. Now I cannot go too much into detail simply because this is just a complete mess. However, I will give you the broad strokes. In 2009, Ronaldo was in Las Vegas with his brother-in-law and his cousin, and during his time, it's been claimed that he met a model called Catherine Mayorga and alleged that Ronaldo PE'd her in a Las Vegas hotel. Ronaldo denied all the claims, called them fake news, and maintained that this was consensual. Images was found of both people involved together that night in Las Vegas. After these accusations, Ronaldo of course refused it completely, and it was reportedly settled outside of court with a roughly $350,000 payout. As it was settled out of court and with an agreement, it stated that this prevented Mayorga from pursuing criminal charges. However, recently from the hashtag #2 movement, claiming that she was pressured and scared of Ronaldo and accepted the settlement. The case was brought back up again in 2021 and the case was dismissed, and there's been no update on this since then. However, one thing keeps being brought up is that Ronaldo seems to always avoid America since this case has been reopened. Could it be true that he's avoiding going to the US to avoid potentially being detained? We won't fully know for sure. However, this is definitely something that still remains over the head of Ronaldo, and to this day is still active. Adam Johnson. On the 24th of March 2016, Adam Johnson put the league and the nation into embarrassment as he was sentenced to 6 years in prison after being found guilty of sexual activity with a child. Adam Johnson pled guilty to kissing and grooming a 15-year-old girl. This was at his time at Sunderland, and the girl in question was a massive Sunderland fan who was infatuated with Adam Johnson, who he was her hero. Evidence was found of 834 WhatsApp messages between the pair in just over a month. The most interesting part about this story is that despite being arrested on suspicion of having sexual activity with a 15-year-old girl and was initially suspended, the suspension lasted for only 2 matches, who after Gus Poyet was sacked, Dick Advocaat took place. Adam Johnson returned back to the club and played in a next match. Despite Johnson being charged with 3 offences, Sunderland continued to select him while he initially pleaded not guilty to the charges. Adam Johnson continued to play for almost an entire year, and his contract was terminated after he pled guilty to sexual activity with a child and grooming. Serbia v Albania 2016. A UEFA Euro 2016 qualifying match between Serbia and Albania took place on 14th of October 2014. This match was abandoned for several incidents of hooliganism. Serbian fans chanted "Kill the Albanian" multiple times throughout the game, throwing flares and other objects on the pitch, and at one point a drone helicopter carrying an Albanian nationalist banner with an image of Greater Albania appeared on the pitch. During this, the Albanian players rushed towards the Serbian player who brought down the banner from the drone, attempting to remove it. This therefore triggered a pitch invasion by the Serbian fans, who proceeded to attack some of the Albanian players, 4 of whom sustained minor injuries. Alongside the attacks by Serbian fans, the Albanian side claimed that the players were also attacked by the stewards and the riot police. 10 days later, UEFA awarded Serbia a walkover against Albania, with Serbia to have won the match 3-0. That Albania was at fault for refusing to resume the match. However, this was overturned as it was appealed by the Albanian Federation. A year later, on the 10th of July 2015, the Court of Arbitration for Sport rejected the appeal by Serbia and upheld the Albanian Football Association, ruling it a 3-0 victory to Albania instead, with a points deduction to Serbia, fines, and an order to play Serbia's home games without a crowd was left intact. Ruled that the match was abandoned due to security lapses of the organisers and acts of violence exerted on the Albanian players by the Serbian fans and at least one security steward. Despite the two countries never directly fighting a war with each other, the two countries have very strong political disagreements regarding Kosovo. The fallout of this match caused a lot of havoc for many communities across many parts of Europe. In Serbia, at least a dozen bakeries, snack bars, and local businesses owned by ethnic Albanians was set on fire, and a bomb was used in one case. The effect of this single match of football harmed many in many parts of the world. Spain versus USSR, 1960. The first ever European Championships was held in France, with only 4 nations taking part, that being Czechoslovakia, Soviet Union, France, and Yugoslavia. However, that was not meant to be the original plan. There was a qualifying round to enter, where there was a round of 16, with many nations playing a home and away leg. We're going to focus on Spain here. Long went to the quarterfinals. If you win this, you are through to the major championship, and the Soviet Union played Spain. Well, they didn't actually play them. In 1960, Spain had one of the most talented teams, with many claiming that they should have went on to win the tournament. However, at the time, Spain was ruled by a right-wing dictator, Francisco Franco. You may be aware of him if you studied history. A man who refused to allow his, at the time, fascist country to appear weak in the eyes of the world. So, when Spain drew the USSR, the Soviet Union, in the quarterfinals, controversy was always bound to ensue, and the USSR was obviously communist, and Franco feared that a loss against the Soviet Union would cause people to think one political ideology was superior to the other. So the Spanish dictator Franco refused Spain to play in the championships and forfeited the match. I mean, if I know anything about showing strength, forfeiting is possibly not the best way to do it. If it does mean anything, Spain did go on to host the next following Euros in 1964, where they actually, you guessed it, faced the Soviet Union in the final. Who won, you ask? It was Spain. I'm not getting into politics about Spanish history here, okay? God damn it. Group C, 2004. In Euro 2004, Italy needed a lot to go their way to make it past the group stage. Going into the final round of games, Italy needed a win, plus anything other than a draw higher than 1-1 between Sweden and Denmark to qualify through. Well, Italy did their part by defeating Bulgaria 2-1, and wouldn't you know it, Sweden and Denmark drew 2-2, and this sent Italy packing. And this caused a lot of problems. Many believe that Sweden and Denmark conspired to achieve a 2-2 draw, so that they can both advance. While this was never proven, this remained controversial for multiple years. They may have some solid reasons though. On that same day, a lot of betting markets discovered that they took an unusual amount, high volume of that exact scoreline being predicted. However, when you watch the game, nothing from what I can see, I've not watched it back, but a 2-2 draw is really hard to fake in my view personally. There was little sympathy for the Italians, who earlier drew 0-0 with Denmark, and Italian player at the time, Christian Panucci, claiming that it was because the thread our socks are made with is too rough. After a 1-1 draw with Sweden, striker Christian Vieri went after the media, telling reporters, "I'm not talking to you people ever again. None of you may judge me as a man because I am more of a man than all of you put together. You have no idea how much of a man I am." Now that is the best quote I think I've ever heard. The next time I play FIFA with my mate and I beat him in a game, I'm going to use that exact same quote. Do you think it's possible for there to be corruption in this regard? You tell me down below. Mario Balotelli 2012. Euro 2012 was Balotelli's tournament for multiple reasons. Number one, in a good light, his semi-final performance against Germany, for example, will never be forgotten, and especially his celebration where he took his shirt off and flexed for the entire world to see, with the memes made along the way. That was all quite pathetic, I'll be honest. But it also led to some massive problems. One being, for example, the Gazeta, where they put out a cartoon of Mario Balotelli as King Kong. Yeah, they put in the Italian newspaper a cartoon of Mario Balotelli as King Kong. Are you kidding me? Mario Balotelli's inclusion in the Italian national team was quite symbolic on many levels, with many times before and afterwards with the views of the Italian ultras being made among the Italian national team, with simply put that Italy is for the Italians. I made an entire video about Balotelli, about his incredibly sad history with racism and racist attacks across his entire career on my channel, and the link is down below if you're interested. And this wasn't even the only incident during this tournament where he was targeted for multiple racist chants at the tournament as well, one including a massive incident against Croatia. Between Italy and Croatia in Group C, the Croatian Football Federation was fined €80,000. By the way, fined less than how much Nicholas Bettner was for taking his pants off. The Croatian fans were fined racist abuse after monkey chants was heard and a banana was thrown directly at him. Croatia was also fined back in Euro 2008 for racist abuse from their fans during a game against Turkey, and alleged racist abuse also happened during a match between Spain and Italy and Russia and the Czech Republic in Euro 2012 as well. The Spanish fans group said some of its country supporters abused Balotelli against a game against Italy, and Czech Republic defender Fyodor Salesi told reporters he also had racist chants directed at him between their game between Russia and the Czech Republic. Balotelli was the main man of this tournament, sadly for some great reasons and for some awful reasons too. Euro 2012. Many controversies happened during Euro 2012, many more than you could have ever imagined. For example, here is an image of the Wikipedia page of the title Concerns and Controversies Related to Euro 2012. As you can see, it's quite long. As a person that lives in Poland, and this is a tournament regarding Poland and Ukraine, it's a weird one to dive into. Before the tournament even began, there was many calls to boycott the event, many from Austria and Germany, including especially a certain Dortmund manager called Jurgen Klopp, following Yulia Tymoshenko's hunger strike, which started on 20th of April 2012, and her mistreatment in a Ukrainian prison. Next up, on the 28th of May 2012, BBC programme Panorama examined the issues of racism, anti-Semitism and football hooliganism among Polish and Ukrainian supporters. This was then followed by multiple media sources in Britain publishing a large number of articles accusing Poles and Ukrainians of racism. This of course didn't go down well with many Polish and Ukrainians, including many people that took part of the documentary that felt like they were used, that felt like they were exploited and twisted everything they said. However, let's go to the actual tournament. The first incident that happened was between Russia and the Czech Republic, where Russian hooligans were violent against Polish stewards, and around 30 Russian hooligans attacked these stewards. 4 stewards were rushed to hospital. 3 days later, between Croatia and Ireland, Croatian football fans attacked with the riot police in Poznan. This was a clash between supporters of 2 Croatian rival teams of Dinamo Zagreb and Split. Croatia was also later charged with racist chants and symbols against Mario Balotelli in the Croatia-Italy game, and were fined. 1 day later, a clash of of Russian and Polish hooligans took place in Warszawa. This was organised by the Russian fans celebrating Russia Day before the Poland v Russia game. If you don't know, Poland and Russia don't like each other. 100 arrests was made and 10 people were hospitalised. Spanish fans were also accused of racism to Mario Balotelli between the match of Spain and Italy, with Russian fans showing similar behaviour against the Czech Republic towards Fyodor Salassi. In England, when Italy knocked out England in the quarter-finals, over 150 England fans attacked the Italian fans after being knocked out, with 4 arrests and 1 person sent to hospital. Ukraine also came under criticism for killing stray cats and dogs in order to prepare for Euro 2012, and just prior to the event 4 bombs went off in Ukraine, with at least 29 people were injured in what was described as a serious attack. This caused many more questions for the tournament to continue. So yeah, it was an interesting tournament. Oh yeah, by the way, Spain won, if you didn't remember, Euro 2016. So, there was many riots in Euro 2016 in France, and there were many recorded incidences between a multiple variety of fans. Shall we go through the list? Let's start with Marseille. On the 10th of June, English fans in Marseille clashed with police, with tear gas used to break up the crowd. 1 fan and 1 local man was arrested. Many English fans were claiming that the police were being unnecessarily confrontational and provoked further problems. Multiple bottles and items were thrown between the police and other fans, including Jamie Vardy's wife, Rebecca, hit by tear gas during the disruption. The next day, England played Russia. So you know how this is gonna go. The police again used tear gas and a water cannon to control the crowds. Immediately after the match that ended 1-1, around 150 Russian fans attacked and charged the England supporters, setting off flares and climbing over the fence to attack the England fans, attacking them with chairs and metal bars. Lille. German and Ukrainian fans clashed in Lille before the group stage game on the 12th of June. An additional 4,000 police were drafted in, and Russia and English fans clashed yet again on the 15th of June, requiring the police to use tear gas yet again before Russia's game against Slovakia. French riot police used tear gas and charged at hundreds of English fans as flares went off and fans were herded away by the riot police. A scuffle between English and Russian fans also broke out as they were in the same city, as that's where the group stage games are played, and at least 36 people was arrested between England and Russian fans, with 16 people hospitalised. Nice. On the 12th of June, violence broke out between French hooligans and Northern Irish supporters, who had both been drinking with their Polish counterparts in Nice ahead of a match between Northern Ireland and Poland. An attack later on was provoked by local French hooligans, with 6 Northern Irish and a Polish supporter injured, one of them seriously and hospitalised. 5 days later, several Spanish fans were also arrested for robbery with violence before the Spain v Turkey game in Nice. Before the Croatia v Turkey match on 12th of June, the PSG hooligan ultra group attacked groups of Turkish supporters during the match at the Parc des Princes, with the PSG ultra group holding banners saying Turkish fans are not welcome. In the hours before the 10th of July final between Portugal and France, there were clashes between fans trying to access the Eiffel Tower zone. By the end of the game, and Portugal beat France 1-0, fights broke out between fans outside the stadium, and it continued throughout the night. Cologne. On the 16th of June, Russian hooligans attacked 3 Spanish tourists in the German city of Cologne. The attack was apparently sparked when the Spaniards, 2 men and 1 woman, put stickers of anti-fascist slogans on a lamppost. The right-wing Russian group attacked them. During a match between Czech Republic and Croatia on the 17th of June, Croatian hooligans threw flares on the pitch, causing Mark Clattenburg to put the match at a halt. The fans then went on to fight between themselves, with a steward struck by a firecracker. You may have noticed that Croatia has been involved a lot here, and that is on purpose. Between the Bad Blue Boys, the Armada Rijeka, and the Ultrasi, that was the 3 biggest ultra groups in Croatia, who purposely went to France in the idea to publicly embarrass the country, in an idea of revolt against the Croatian Football Federation. On the 19th of June, between a match of Albania and Romania, crowd trouble was attributed to fans from both countries. Supporters let off smoke bombs, thrown objects at each other, and invaded the pitch. And according to French authorities, one Albanian man hid a flare inside his ass. So it was quite fun. That's the list. Okay. Christian Eriksen, Euro 2020. This will be the last entry onto this video. I do thank you for your time and for sticking by me with this. Fortunately, for many of my icebergs, it does get really dark and really sinister at the end. However, the last one has got a happy ending, which I'm very happy to say. Christian Eriksen, the first match of Euro 2020 of the group stage between Denmark and Finland, in what was meant to be a joyous occasion in the city of Copenhagen, turned into a tragic day for the Danish Football Federation. While the game was 0-0, Christian Eriksen collapsed on the field in the 42nd minute as he was about to receive a throw-in, with captain Simon Kjaer was later credited for his response after placing him immediately into the recovery position and ensuring that he doesn't swallow his tongue. Urgent medical assistance arrived immediately, with many critiques towards many media outlets for still showcasing the distress of not only Christian Eriksen on the floor, but by multiple amounts of players, and not immediately cutting to a black screen or to the studio. For multiple minutes, 10-15 minutes, no one knew what was going on, and for many people across the world, including myself, we all felt that we just witnessed someone die in front of our very own eyes, and we had no idea how to process it. He was taken off the pitch on a stretcher, and the match was suspended. After an hour after the incident, the Danish Football Association confirmed that Eriksen had been stabilised and was awake at hospital. After many claims of what was seen as cruel, the match had to be continued and resulted in a 1-0 victory for Finland. The decision to continue the match was critiqued by everyone, not only in Denmark but across the world, with claims that UEFA had threatened the Danish national team that a 3-0 loss will be reported if they refused to finish the match, leaving the players with no choice but to continue. The next day was confirmed that Eriksen suffered a cardiac arrest on the field, with Eriksen posting a picture of himself in the hospital saying he's fine under the circumstances. Denmark, of course, had to continue on that tournament no matter what, without one of their best players, and the mental scar that would have to damage a player would be unbelievable. They had to go and beat Russia to stand any chance. No team had ever qualified after losing their first two games, and Denmark managed to do it, hammering Russia and then beating Wales in the round of 16 and then beating the Czech Republic in the quarterfinals, being knocked out in the semi-finals to England in a very unfair manner that many people would believe. The likes of Kasper Schmeichel having lasers shined onto his eyes during a penalty, or what people would see as a very soft penalty from Raheem Sterling that led to the winning penalty by Harry Kane. Even as an England fan looking back on this, I still don't look back at it with any pride, and I completely get why fans from all around the world can have reason to not be a big fan of England during this tournament. Denmark became everyone's favourite team for the tournament, and for good reason. And I'm very happy that for once an iceberg of mine has an happy ending, as Christian Eriksen to this day is still playing football at the highest level, and that in itself is a miracle beyond anything that we could have ever imagined. For example, Fabrice Maramba had a cardiac arrest in a famous incident between Tottenham Hotspur and Bolton Wanderers, and he had to retire immediately. Another incident was with Adohak Nouri, who also suffered a cardiac arrest and suffered permanent brain damage. The fact that Eriksen is not only alive and is well, but is also able to play football at a competitive level and at a top level is a complete miracle. The Abyss. 2000 UEFA Cup. On the 5th of April 2000, between a semi-final of the UEFA Cup between Leeds United and Galatasaray, a tragic event took place. On the day before the first leg in Istanbul, 2 Leeds fans were stabbed to death by Galatasaray fans. 4 men were arrested and charged. The report stated the following: that around 9 o'clock in Istanbul's Taksim Square, During a fight between Leeds and Galatasaray fans, it went out of hand. The official Turkish reports stated that Leeds fans were taunting people from local bars, which led to Turkish police being called in to stop fights breaking out. The story goes that a Galatasaray fan ran to a nearby telephone box to call in for support. Several Galatasaray fans, reportedly members of the Night Watchmen they were called, a gang in Istanbul, entered the area, and from this, 2 Leeds fans by the name of Kevin Spate and Christopher Loftus were stabbed to death, aged 40 and 37. Police arrested 4 people, including Ali Umit Demir. Reports of how the fight broke out are unclear, and due to the nature of this event, I am not going to go into those different stories. However, if you wish to research this yourself, then you can do so. News spread back home of what took place in Istanbul, and it was a very, very sensitive affair. Galatasaray fans were banned from visiting Ellen Road, as they cannot simply guarantee their safety. From the semi-final, Galatasaray went on to knock out Leeds from the UEFA Cup. However, the story does not end there, as in the 2000 UEFA Cup final in Copenhagen, this led to even more trouble, known as the Battle of Copenhagen, as Galatasaray went on to play another English team in Arsenal. On the 17th of May 2000, 4 people were stabbed in riots in the City Hall Square. This was viewed as retaliation and revenge by British firms who went out to seek revenge for the people that were killed by Galatasaray. Of these hooligan firms, they were the following: the Herd and the Gooners, the Leeds United Service Crew, the Chelsea Headhunters, Rangers, Cardiff City and Swansea City fans, and their own separate firms too. A riot broke out in the city square and 2,000 officers were deployed to the area. This led to 19 injuries, including 4 stabbings and 60 arrests. Of the people arrested, 19 were British, 36 were Turkish, and the rest from Sweden, Germany and the Netherlands. Fortunately, after this riot, despite 19 people being injured, no one came out losing their life, which is the most important thing. An awful timeline in recent European history. Munich, 1958. Other known as the Munich air disaster, on the 6th of February 1958, a British European Airways flight carrying the Manchester United football team, including supporters and journalists, crashed on its 3rd attempt to take off in Munich. 44 people were on board, with 23 people losing their lives, with 21 surviving the event. The 1958 Manchester United team, otherwise known as the Busby Babes, were returning from a European Cup match in Belgrade, having eliminated Red Star Belgrade to advance to the European Cup semi-finals. They stopped in Munich to refuel. Pilots James Fane and Kenneth Raymond twice abandoned takeoff because of boost surging in the left engine. Fane rejected an overnight stay in Munich in favour of a 3rd takeoff attempt. By that time, snow started falling and caused a layer of slush to form on the runway. Reported by authorities, the story goes as this: as the plane was taking off, the slush on the runway slowed the plane down too much. This caused the aircraft to plough through a fence beyond the end of the runway, striking a house in the process and a parked fuel truck, causing it to catch fire and explode. Harry Gregg gained consciousness, and from this were able to kick a hole to help him escape and help passengers. Among them were teammates Bobby Charlton and Dennis Viollet. From this tragic event, 23 passengers lost their lives. A memorial could be found outside Old Trafford in memory of the officials and players who lost their lives. Bradley Lowry. A young boy called Bradley was a Sunderland fan, and in the season of 2016-17, his story captured the hearts of not just the Premier League, but the entire world. Bradley was diagnosed with an illness at just 18 months. That illness was neuroblastoma, and despite him beating the disease initially, it returned in July 2016, and the cancer was subsequently found to have become terminal. Bradley had a strong bond with the Sunderland striker Jermaine Defoe. The duo first met on September 2016 when Sunderland hosted Everton in the Premier League. Bradley led his beloved Black Cats out onto the pitch as a mascot and received a round of applause during the 5th minute. Supporters of both clubs sang "There's Only One, Bradley Lowry." 3 months later, Bradley met Defoe once again as Sunderland played against Chelsea, and he was introduced to many of the players and even scored on the pitch and won the official Match of the Day Goal of the Month. The entirety of football came together as players did their part to wish Bradley well. For example, Troy Deeney gave a Christmas card to deliver for Bradley on behalf of the entire Watford squad. Multiple times, Jermaine Defoe and many teammates of Sunderland visited Bradley in hospital. Young Bradley fell asleep on his bed in the arms of the forward. Jermaine Defoe was called up to the England team. Bradley was so happy about hearing the news, and as the players took out to Wembley, Jermaine Defoe carried Bradley out in his arms. Jermaine Defoe even went on to score in the 21st minute. However, sadly, on July 7th, 2017, Bradley Lowry lost his battle with neuroblastoma. Following Bradley's passing, Jermaine Defoe said, "He was my best friend. He was genuine. He loved his football. He loved me. And I loved him. There was nothing I could give him apart from just being a friend." Since his passing, the Bradley Lowry Foundation has been formed and still continues to this day. The link to the foundation is down below in the description. The Vizeh incident. On the 27th of October 2018, Vizeh's AW169 helicopter crashed outside the King Power Stadium shortly after taking off from the pitch. Vizeh was the chairman of Leicester City, who him and his son Ayawat purchased the club in 2010. With Vizeh in charge, he transformed Leicester from a side in the Championship and took them to the dream of winning the Premier League title in 2015-2016. From this event, Vizeh gifted all 19 players a BMW i8 at £100,000 each as a gift for winning the title. From many stories from fans and players and managers, everyone had great respect of Vizeh and the way that he represented not just himself, his family, but the football club. Vizeh was on board with 5 other people who all lost their lives. On their aircraft was Vizeh himself, his 2 members of staff, Cave Pun Pornpair and Nusara Suknamai, British pilot Eric Swafner and his Polish girlfriend Isabella Rosa Lehovich. The cause of the tragic event was as the pilot turned the helicopter towards its en route heading, the tail rotor control linkage broke, sending the helicopter into an uncontrollable spin. One witness described the aircraft falling like a stone to the floor. As it struck the ground, it burst into flames. A rescue attempt was made, but sadly, it was too late. An horrific event in Premier League history. And his legacy, with his son still in charge of Leicester, still continues to this day, as heartfelt tributes was given when Leicester City won the FA Cup in 2021. Vizeh, 1985. We have come to the end of this video, and sadly, we all knew that this was coming. On the 29th of May 1985, the European Cup final between Juventus and Liverpool took place. The report states that mostly Juventus fans, escaping a breach by Liverpool fans, were pressed against a collapsing wall at Vizeh Stadium in Brussels, causing 600 non-fatal injuries and 39 fatalities. Approximately an hour before the match, early warning signs were being shown of what may happen ahead. Both supporters were separated by a flimsy divide, which was seen as a neutral section for the European Cup final by those who purchased tickets in Belgium. As items were being thrown back and forth, the fence were ripped down and fighting took place. The fans in the neutral section began to run away from the Liverpool fans. Fans that were already near the wall were crushed. Eventually, the wall collapsed, allowing others to escape, but leading to a majority of deaths. Despite all of this that happened before the game, the match was still played. Even after a state of siege was declared in the city, and Juventus went on to win that game 1-0. Due to what took place, UEFA banned all English football clubs from playing in European competitions for 5 seasons. Liverpool for 6. 14 Liverpool fans were found guilty, darkest hour in the history of UEFA competitions. Of the 39 people who lost their lives, 32 were Italian, 4 Belgian, 2 French, and 1 from Northern Ireland, the youngest being the age of 11. Investigations took place, with UEFA holding the stance with saying, and I quote, "Only the English fans were responsible." Of that there is no doubt. It always feels uncomfortable to talk about Vizeh, and even as an Englishman, I never really heard about Vizeh really at all growing up until in my later years that I went out and researched it myself. I think for obvious reasons, this dark period in English football history has been rubbed away, and I don't want Liverpool fans to think that I'm putting all the blame on them. However, this is the official history. A memorial can be found outside Anfield, in St John's Gardens in Liverpool, at the Juventus headquarters in the hometown of victim Claudio Savaroni, a sculpture outside the new Vizeh Stadium, and at the J Museum in Turin. In the first meeting since the tragic event in the 2005 Champions League, before the first leg at Anfield, Liverpool fans held up placards to form a banner saying Amicizia, meaning friendship in Italian, while some Juve fans applauded, others turned their backs. Juve fans displayed banners reading "Easy to speak, difficult to pardon," and another saying 15-4-85 Sheffield, God exists. The second banner in reference to the Hillsborough disaster, a truly awful event, and one which is still very sensitive to this day. So lads, there you have it. I hope you guys found this interesting, at least some stories in it you may not have known. I'll be honest, some of these I never even knew, so I hope that you learned something today, because I know that I most definitely have. Tell me down below in the comments, what did I miss out on, and which iceberg should I do next. I do enjoy making these, and I hope that you guys do enjoy them. Feel free and subscribe to the channel, and of course do not forget code Iceberg for 15% off all items at my football printer company, mazzaladesigns.co.uk. Link is down below at the top of the description. And there you go, boys. I'll see you next time. Peace out.